two special guests today. My co-host, Warren Brown, Sir Warren Brown of the Beatles Kingdom, and the fantastic author of all things Beatles with his own radio show, and quite a heck of a musician in his own right, our friend Brooke Halpin. Welcome, fellas.
Well, welcome, yes, welcome indeed, and nice to be back with you guys again. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure for us. Well, we were debating a topic to bring up because there's so many in the Beatles universe across that universe. And we were talking about those Paul is dead hoax rumors and all those clues on those records. And whose brain is better to pick than Brooke's about that? So I'm going to dive right into this, and let's enjoy the show. So, Brooke, how did all this business with the Paul is dead hoax start? And was there if it's always a DJ or some radio person or podcaster who causes all this trouble, was there one who started all this business spreading all over the place?
Yeah, that's true. It did start. It started with a DJ. That's correct. Those damn DJs,
That figures.
They stir up all this trouble. It was actually in Detroit. Some guy named Russell Gibb picked up on the claim, the story, spread from there. This was like October of '69, and I can tell you this. I was a student at the Harvard Conservatory of Music at the time, and I was in a class, and all of a sudden, this girl, a friend of mine, came. She just kind of like crashing into the room, and she goes, I need to talk with Brooke. I need to talk with Brooke. Just telling the teacher that. So I leave the room thinking, oh my God, somebody died, thinking, maybe it was a friend or something like that. And she goes, Paul's dead. Paul's dead. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, Paul McCartney died. He's dead. I said, no, come on. He can't be dead. So we go to my little lime-colored, pastel-colored VW Beetle and turn on the local radio station. And that's all you heard. It was like, yes, we have reports that Paul McCartney died in a car crash in 1966. And we just, when we heard it on the radio, back then, not so much today maybe, but back then when you heard something on the radio, it was like the gospel truth. You just didn't question it. Oh, it's on the radio. Oh, it must be true, kind of thing. So we all freaked out. And a lot of people believed it was true, and they were giving us all the clues. So we would get together in the evening, and we would get hold of our records and put them on turntables where you could actually play the records backwards back then, because the turntable would go in reverse if you just did it with your finger. And sure enough, we heard all the clues that they were talking about, and there were many, many clues to support the fact that McCartney was dead.
Stunned. Like the Ruddles, shocked and stunned. You said this was started by Russell Gibb, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Was he like the Bee Gee who couldn't sing?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. He was one of the Gibb brothers that was rejected and thrown out of the Gibb family. And he
didn't quite make the cut. He went on his own, and the other one they just sent from down under to be a Detroit disc jockey.
Well, he figured, well, you know what, if I can't be with my brother's Gibb, then, I'll just have to be a disc jockey in Detroit, which is not the same, of course. But you're right.
I wonder if he also had that beautiful Gibb falsetto. Oh, can you do that? Can you do the Gibb falsetto?
Oh, well, it was interesting back then, actually, during the Bee Gees disco era, because Robin was the one who had the real high voice. And, that's true. Actually, Maurice had the high voice, too, but the two of them had these really high voices. And their vibrato was just so intense.
Mine isn't what it used to
be. So we used to say that, anybody who sang like that, they had BGitis, which was like a disease that was going around at the time.
If you play that backwards, you get it J.D. Sumner from J.D. Sumner and the Stamps with Elvis.
Do you really? We'll have to do that on the next show.
We'll play it backwards later. We have all the technology waiting. We spare no expense for your Beatle pleasure. Now, I remember when I was a kid, I annoyed my mother until she bought me a back issue of Life magazine. and it had pictures of Paul McCartney at his farm in Scotland.
Yeah.
And like some reporters came, and much like when I tried to come over to have dinner with Brooke, and he also threw a pail of water at me and got rid of me. That's what happened when Paul threw it to Life magazine reporters. And they took off, and then Paul ran after them. So what happened when Paul was in Scotland? He's up at his farm, and the Life reporters show up, and what happened in that one?
Well, it's interesting because actually a friend of mine lived near his farm in Scotland, and around this time, what had happened was the Beatles. John had announced privately that he wanted a divorce. And so the Beatles had already finished recording Abbey Road, and they wouldn't record together anymore. So Paul said, the hell with it. I'm just going to go up to my farm up in Scotland. No reason to be in London. We're not recording. I'm not doing anything with the Beatles anymore. So he became somewhat of a recluse up on his Scottish farm. And then when this whole thing broke, then so some photographer and some reporters went up to his home, and he was really pissed off. Felt like they were trespassing on his property, and he's really mad at them. He probably told them to bugger off and leave him alone because he didn't want to be bothered. But he did. He did let someone take a photograph of him, and that was the photograph that ended up on the cover of it. Was it Life magazine, I believe? I think it was Life, or was it Look? One or the other. One of those L magazines.
It was Life. I made them buy it for me, so
it was Life. Yeah, it was Life. Yeah. So that was the thing that he did, just to say, hey, look it, it's a bunch of rubbish, and I'm not dead. And the funny thing is that many years later, when Paul did an interview, he said, well, if I was dead, I'd be the last one to know about it. Which is really pretty funny, actually.
Pretty. Now, as the young lady burst into your music class, was that at Harvard? You said?
No, the Hartford Conservatory of Music.
I'm sorry, I'm not educated, so I get the schools confused. I thought you said the Harvard. I was impressed either way. I mean, I know that you're a musical genius. I was wondering what school it was. But as she burst into your class nonetheless, she came in, and what were some of these early clues that you found out? She said, Paul is dead, and you said, you're daft. And then she said, no, he's upside down on the record cover or something. What were some of the first ones that came to your awareness as you realized Paul might indeed be dead?
The local DJ at that time in Hartford, he was telling us what the clues were. So the biggest one was the number 9 clue. If you play that backwards, it's turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man.
Do we have that one, Warren?
Yes, I do. You want to hear it?
This is the new feature on Tomorrow Never Knows. We spared no expense for your listening pleasure. Through the wonders of technology and NASA, we bring you Warren's Backward Masking. Now you can play it.
Okay, this is forward first, and then you'll hear it in reverse.
All right.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9. And here it is backwards. Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man. There you go. Did you hear it all right?
Yeah.
Yes, that came out perfectly.
Yeah, so what do you think, guys? I mean, does it sound like Turn Me On, Dead Man? Turn Me On, Dead Man?
Yeah. Well, this was no accident in one way or another. This isn't interpretive. I mean, this is pretty clear, I think. What about you, Warren?
I concur with that because, I mean, it's pretty clear what he's saying.
Yeah, what do you call that thing, a Rorschach test or something? This isn't like looking at the cloud and coming up with a foot. This is pretty much sounds like what it was. Play the second half one more time. Warren's Backward Masking.
Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man. Turn me on, man.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. That's pretty damn clear. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Yeah. So we heard that, and we freaked out even more than we were already freaked out to begin with. So then we're thinking, Jesus Christ, it might be true. And then there were more clues. We went through the whole bloody clue set. And
Give us a few.
A lot of us thought that, that he actually was gone. And there were girls at the school who were crying because of this. They were not only at the conservatory, but girls all over the world, and in the States and in the UK, who this knew when the news broke. The girls were sobbing because they thought it might have been true. They believed it was true at the time. It was terrible. It was scary. So
if people make believe you're dead, that's pretty cool. If girls are crying, if people made believe I was dead, God forbid I really was, but if people made believe I was dead and girls were crying, I think you made it. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm juvenile, I know. I'm just saying, I think it's pretty cool. Your friends do a hoax that you're dead. Women are crying all over the world. You're pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool as long as you're still alive.
You would suck if you were dead. That's the darn truth. So as all this business is going on now, I know, like when you hear a little help from my friends and they sing, Billy Shears, it's like Billy's here, and there's supposed to be this, fella from an orphanage in Edinburgh, or Berg. I don't know how the British, if they pronounce the H, it's like the French with the X. For an orphan from Edinburgh. How did the Beatles find this William Campbell, supposedly, and Billy's here?
Well, they had a look-alike contest in '66. They really did. And I think I've mentioned on an earlier show that I actually have a photograph of some of the winners of the look-alike contest, and I have a photograph of 4 different Paul McCartneys on a boat in the East River, that runs along Manhattan in New York. And I look at this thing, and I think, okay, Jesus, it must be photoshopped, But the more I look at it, I say, I don't really think it is photoshopped, So then you think, well, good God, they had this contest, and here's the 4 lookalikes. So probably one of them was Mr. Campbell, more than likely.
I've never seen that picture. Like, you saw it then. Do you still have that in your archive?
I do. I could send it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And then you had mentioned once that he went to Africa, and there was a picture from Africa in one of our long dissertations on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Please know what I'm talking about. I hate it when it hangs and then I'm wrong. Like, I see, remember when you said this, and you go, Bob, I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened.
Yeah, no.
It's hard to go on with the next question.
No, it's a big deal. The whole African departure and the African trip. It was Paul going to Africa with Mal Evans. And this was, like maybe middle to latter November of '66. So number one, it's like, okay, why is Paul going to Africa, number one? Number two, there's photographs of him that I have, and that you can find on the internet, actually. Anybody can find them. And you look at the photograph and you say, is that really McCartney? And you look at what he looked like at Candlestick Park, right? Late August '66. Because that was really, those photographs around the Candlestick Park performance were more or less, I think they may have been the last photographs of McCartney before he went to South Africa. So it's like, what's he doing down there? And then you look at this guy, and he's much taller. It looks like he's on stilts, for God's sake. And he doesn't quite look like Paul. His face doesn't look the same. And then when you look at the photograph that they used on the sleeve for Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields, one side is them as babies, the little babies on one side, and the other side is this brilliant photograph of backlighting in blue kind of thing. And you look at that McCartney, and that face looks like the guy that was down in Africa with Mal Evans. And of course, there was a gap of time between when they stopped touring at the end of August, and then the next thing we saw and we heard wasn't until they released Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, which was playing about in February of 1967. So time had gone by. There is actually some footage of the Beatles going into Abbey Road. I think it was December of '67. And McCartney walks up toward the door, and there's a reporter there. And he asks Paul a question, and it was kind of like, can't quite remember the question, but it was something like, kind of like, well, what are you doing now? What are you working on? And that kind of thing. And what he did was he turned to Mal Evans and he asked Mal. He asked Mal a question, and then Mal whispered into Paul's ear. And then Paul answered the question. So I'm thinking, well, what the hell? Why does Paul have to ask Mal Evans as to what the Beatles are doing? I mean, McCartney would know. So there's all this stuff. There's so much stuff that was going on at that time, which just fuels this, this whole hoax thing about Paul being dead. I don't think he's dead, for God's sake. I mean, how in the hell?
Don't give that away till the end of the show when we have our coroner's verdict.
Oh, okay. I will. Okay, I'll hold my thought till the end of the show. Then I didn't really.
That's another feature after Warren's backward masking. We have Beatles coroner's verdict.
I didn't say
Warren,
that. So one of my imposters said that. Will you get out of here? I'm doing an interview with Bob and with Warren. For Christ's sake, get out of the room. So
put him back in his place. Put him back in his place.
Okay.
As we turn over to Warren now and his inquisitive line of questioning, could we hear another example of this backward masking? How many seconds of a Beatles song can we play before they send people over to like beat us? What do we have, like 27 seconds?
All right, that was Glass Onion. I'm going to play it forward, and then it's going to come in backwards. Now here it is backwards.
What the hell is that?
It says Paul took the wrong road.
Paul took the wrong road. Now, I must tell you that never came up way back in '69 as a clue. So this is you have unearthed a new clue, Warren. So
I got a few new ones on here.
Yeah, you got a new one. Yeah, that's a new one. I never heard that before. But the big one was, of course, one of the biggest ones was at the end of Strawberry Fields when John says, "I buried Paul." That's the big one. And that's not backwards. That's straight out forward. And then John said, "Oh, no, I didn't say I buried Paul. I said I'm very bored." And I said, then John said, "Oh, no, it wasn't I buried Paul. It wasn't I'm very bored. It was cranberry sauce." It's not cranberry sauce. It's definitely not cranberry sauce. Do you have that one, Warren?
No, I don't. That's
you don't have that one. Okay, because it's not a backward one. It's a forward one. Yeah, it's too forward for us. Okay, yeah.
You said that John wanted to get the divorce, right?
Yeah, at the meeting in September of '69. Yeah.
Well, then why didn't they just get rid of him? I'm kidding. Back to Warren's question. I mean, if one of them had to go, he wants to quit anyway. Replace John, right?
That's a good question.
I'm going to be quiet now. You ask your question.
Hey, Brooke, you mentioned something about the contest they had for lookalikes and everything, and
right.
William Campbell might have been in that picture you were saying.
Yeah.
That brings up the OPP that's on Paul's jacket on Sergeant Pepper's. Everybody was saying, William Campbell was an officer at the time, and Paul was wearing that because of that reason. That's what, at least that was the rumors going around back then. Is that true?
Well, there's two interpretations. OPD. The death hoax rumor was that it stood for officially pronounced dead, is what it stood for. And then the Beatles said, no, that's not what it was. It was a jacket from the Ontario Police Department. So then the question is, now, if it was the Ontario Police Department in Canada, how in the hell did they get the jacket from Ontario is a question, unless there's an Ontario Police Department in the UK. I don't know. Is there an Ontario Police Department in England? So that's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, so that was it. That were the two interpretations of the OPD on the jacket. Now, I knew nothing about Campbell being my understanding is that Mr. Campbell had a band of his own called the Pepper Pots, of all things. And if you go on the internet, you can actually see the album, for Christ's sake. He was in a band called the Pepper Pots. And what's the first album that this quote-unquote new Paul McCartney did was, of course, the Pepper album. So that's quite interesting.
That's very interesting. Sgt. Pepper seemed to have a lot of clues on it. Can you go through some of them with us?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I mean, just look at the cover. You know, the cover looks like a gravesite with the flowers, and supposedly the yellow flowers are in the shape of a bass guitar, which, of course, Paul played the bass. You know, that's one. You've got the former Beatles looking down on the grave. The quote-unquote new Beatles are not smiling. They're holding these instruments. So it's almost as if it's the reincarnation of the new Beatles because Paul is dead. On the back of the album, which is really interesting, George Harrison is pointing to Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock. And supposedly, supposedly that's when the accident happened. It happened, I believe, on November 9th, 1966. Although some people say it was November 11th. So it gets, you know, there's so many different interpretations and rumors that fly around. But it's interesting that George would be pointing. And you look at the back of the album, you can see that he's absolutely pointing. And what's McCartney doing on the back of the album? He's the only one who has his back towards us. The other three are looking right at us. So there's all these little clues that are going on. And one of the biggest clues in terms of the songs on Pepper, and I think we may have talked about this before, it's in A Day in the Life. And when John goes, he blew his mind out in the car, right? He didn't notice that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. Nobody was really sure if he was from the house of what? What's the lyric?
Lords.
Yeah. Well, listen to it. You listen to it. I have the actual isolated vocal tracks from some of the songs on Pepper that were given to me by one of the engineers at Abbey Road. And when I listen to it, it's just John's voice. He does not say Lords. Absolutely not. He says from the house, he says either from the house of Paul or the house of Fall. But he does not say the House of Lords. So that's a huge clue. But back then, nobody heard the House of Paul or the House of Fall. They heard the House of Lords because that's what the printed lyrics said when you looked at the lyrics in the album. Nobody questioned, you know, what was printed, what the lyrics were. No one knew about this quote-unquote death hoax in '67. It didn't exist. It didn't happen until 2 years later, more than 2 years later.
Yeah, wow. Here's a new one to me, and I was reading an article the other day, and it says, to the right of the stone statue is a statue of a girl who is looking down to the right at a flaming car. This is supposed to be lovely Rita, the meter maid, who saw Paul's accident and the flaming car. And the reason Paul was in the accident was because he was looking at lovely Rita.
Yeah, well, I don't buy that one. Lovely Rita, because if this had happened, it happened in the wee hours of the morning. She wouldn't have been out on the street anyway. And I don't know. Right. I mean, I can see the connection with the flaming car, because if there was a car crash, then of course the car would have erupted into flames. But I mean, to say that lovely Rita saw the accident, I think, is really a huge stretch, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe it myself. It's just an article I was reading that brought that up, and I never heard that before, so I thought I asked you about that.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. No, I can't go there. No, I don't buy that one.
They also say the first printing of the album the sleeve for the record was in psychedelic red colors, and that was supposed to be Paul's, it was soaked in Paul's blood.
Yeah, well, the sleeve it was, even when they released it, and I still have it, yeah, the sleeve is red. But that's a color that they picked out. I mean, come on. Again, that to me is way out there. I don't think that has anything to do with anything other than they decided to pick red for the color of the sleeve. That's all.
Right. Yeah, that was all in the same article, and I just thought them two were pretty interesting to me because I never heard that before.
However, when you look on the cover of the Let It Be album, there is something that has to do with the color red. And what is it? Mr. Wilson, can you chime in?
If it's Warren's questions, I'm not allowed to answer.
I'm asking for a lifeline.
Is it the apple? The apple?
No. The Let It Be album.
Let It Be back cover. Red is a red apple.
Yeah, it's on the red. Yeah, the label is red, right? But
I took a shot.
That to me signified red for stop. That was the ending of the Beatles recording. That to me was red for stop, and it was the last album that they released. But if you look at the cover and not the actual Apple label on the disc, on the cover you have 4 individual photographs of the Beatles.
Hold on, I'm Googling it. I'll when I get the answer, we can make believe I thought it up.
Yeah. Mr. Google, can you come in now? We need you on the show. Is he? Yeah.
I always confess when I Google it.
Mr. Google. Okay. Yeah. Is Mr. Google with us now? Yes. Come in, Mr. Google. Can you hear us? Yes.
I hear you. Speak louder, son.
Yeah.
The ears weren't what they used to, but everything else works. Hey, you called me in. I was giving you a segment. I was shutting up. Back to you two.
Okay, so do you have the cover thanks to Mr. G?
I have the cover up, yes.
Yeah, okay, and what do you see?
The background of Paul is red.
Right. The background of John, Ringo, and George is white. The background of Paul is red. Oh, so that was a clue. That was a clue. But what's interesting? No, but hang on. What's interesting is that the album wasn't released until 6 months after the Paul McCartney death hoax. So when the death hoax was going on in October of '69, of course, Let It Be what didn't exist in terms of an album release. So they were still monkeying around and playing around with this stuff, even though they always denied that they had anything to do with it, which I think is absolute rubbish. I think they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were having fun with us and laughing about it. It was a big lark for them. That's what I think.
Remember, we have the coroner coming up, so don't give it away.
Oh, okay.
Secret ballot leader.
All right, I got one more, then I'll hand it over to the Bulldog. 1966 album, Yesterday and Today, featured the Beatles posed with raw meat and dismembered doll parts.
Yeah.
Right. I heard that was supposed to be a sign of Paul's gruesome death.
Yeah.
That's the way I was told. Is that true?
Okay, well, listen to this, my dear Mr. Brown.
Yes.
The album was released before his supposed accident.
Okay.
It was released. It was released months before the November accident. Yeah. So again, I don't buy that one. I don't buy it. There's also some people say, oh, well, when they did the remake of the cover, Paul's sitting in the trunk, and the trunk is supposed to be a casket. Again, come on, I don't buy that one either.
All right. I'm going to hand it over to the Bulldog now, and thank you for answering my questions.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, did you bring up the Golden Oldies record?
What do you mean? Oh, yes, I did. And I was going to let him know about that, but I'll let you go through that.
Well, he discovered this, so I don't want to take credit for this research in this aspect of this Beatles case. Warren went back and was telling me about the Golden Oldies cover. So I'm going to hand back to you. And I don't want to steal your research in this matter, most delicate before the coroner's inquest.
That's all right. You can find it on Wikipedia for those who want to look for it. But the front of the collection of Beatles Oldies album, there's a car in the foreground there. It's got the four Beatles supposedly getting out of it. And then up on the hill, you got a car that's heading for the guy that's sitting in the lounge chair on the front cover. Well, yeah. According to Wikipedia here, that car is supposed to be heading straight for the person in the lounge chair, and the person in the lounge chair is supposed to be Paul.
Oh, my. Well, and then there's another car, a smaller car, driving away with the headlights heading right toward this guy lounging in the chair's face.
Exactly.
So what are you going to say? Oh, well, because that car is moving. The other car is stationary. No one's driving the big car with the four Beatles in it.
Right.
But the car that's going up the long and winding blue road is heading right for the gentleman's head. and of course, the guy who's lounging with his striped pants and everything looks absolutely nothing like Paul. Nothing.
No, he doesn't. I agree with that.
So, again, come on, folks. Come on.
Right. And also with that same album, the back cover was supposed to mean something too. Paul sitting so far away from everybody else in a real big puff of smoke is supposed to mean that he was dead too.
Yeah. Well, again, this stuff is coming out. This is coming out after the Beatles broke up. So why would they be continuing at this point? They weren't. I don't think they had anything to do with trying to promote or to perpetuate the myth at that point. Why? What the hell was the purpose? They already did it. I suppose some people could argue that they wanted to keep it going and all that other stuff, but I don't think so. Yeah, I'm looking at the back cover right now, and I don't think so. But you see, there are so many other clues that are believable, and one of them, there's a number of them on the White Album, and one of the biggest ones is Ringo gave us the clue, and the clue was what? What was the clue that Ringo gave us?
This is Warren's segment. I can answer, but I'll let him do it.
You know
Would it be, don't pass me by, don't make me cry, don't make me blue. You were in a car crash and you lost your head. Now you're Ichabod Crane. I'm pretty sure you're dead.
There you go, man. He's actually saying it. He's saying you were in a car crash and you lost your head. Wow.
Right.
So, and no one really talks much about that. But there it is. He just said it very explicitly. And, of course, there's the other clues on the White Album as well. There's quite a few.
Yes.
Which one?
There's Birthday has something backwards. The Glass Onion has something backwards. Of course, Revolution number 9. And they all come off of the White Album.
But there's another one, my dear fellows. At the end of I'm So Tired, have you done that masking, Mr. Brown?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dear. At the end of I'm So Tired, John says a bunch of gibberish. And when you play it backwards, it says, miss him, Paul's a dead. No, it goes, Paul's a dead man. Miss him. Yeah, so that's...
Wasn't that a greeting card line by Yoko?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I think she sent that to Paul as a birthday card, yeah.
Just but
that's a very, when you're doing the whole backwards stuff in 1969, that's a pretty serious clue. Paul's a dead man. Miss him. Wow.
I'd say that figures into the verdict.
Gentlemen. I also got another one here on Soundbite if you guys want to hear it.
We do.
This is coming from the song, It's Johnny's Birthday. Do you guys remember that one?
Oh, yeah, that's in the All Things Must Pass package. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a recording of it forward, and then it's going to come in backwards. And this is backwards. And that's supposed to say he never wore his shoes. Would you like to hear it again all at once, and I won't interrupt?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. And remember what it's supposed to say backwards? See if you can hear it. And here it is backwards. Did you all understand that?
What do you think,
No.
Mr. Wilson?
I couldn't hear an effing thing. I almost cursed on the air. No, I couldn't discern that, but I have a lot of wax in my ears since they told me to stop using Q-tips at the doctor.
It's supposed to say he never wore his shoes.
What does it say? Seals and Crofts are our predecessors? What? I think Paul wishes he was dead when he married Heather Mills. I wish the bloody thing happened the way we put it on the records. How much do we have to pay to get rid of her? Just bring it over in a Brinks truck.
Do you know that
she vies for the Yoko title, doesn't she?
Do you know that he offered to pay her $100 million, and she said, "No, I'm going to take you to court." And he said, "Well,
that wasn't a good move."
And he went to court, and the judge said, "Okay, well, you have to pay Miss Mills $40 million." So she lost $60 million by not taking McCartney's generous offer. Wow, what a fool!
Crickets.
What a fool! Whoa, my God!
$100 million. Her and Yoko should have like a bitch off. You know, I'm just. You guys didn't say it, I did. You can blame me. But really, that would be like what was the movie with like Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, when he jump up in the air and they butt chests? It would be like.
Yeah, I can't see Yoko and Heather being the best of friends, really. You know, I don't see that happening. Unless, of course, Heather got into a bag with Yoko, and that would be a whole other thing. You know,
You can blame this whole line of thought on me. They had nothing to do with it. I shocked them bringing it up spontaneously. But you know when I need a clue, which is quite often. Fellas, how often do I need a clue? It's like every 5 minutes. Oh, I'm Googling and I'm pondering and I'm looking around for an answer. But when I need answers about the Beatles, do you guys know where I go?
Oh, geez, I bet we do. What do you think, Warren? Do you think you know where he goes?
I think I sure do, and he goes talking to Miss Lovely Rita.
Lovely Rita, you say, of Beatles Magazine? Beatles Magazine is a publication with 370 million visitors in all their pages, read by thousands of fans around the world every day. Beatles news updated daily, 24 hours with audio, video, photos, interviews, contests, additional material, and more. Follow the Beatles Magazine, the most complete online coverage, 24 hours a day. And how many days a week, gentlemen?
8 days a week. 8 days, yeah.
8 days a week. And thank you, lovely Rita, for having anything to do with us after listening to the show. We salute you. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. What about the song where John had George come join him as a guitarist? And they have footage of it in one of the Lennon movies when he was a solo artist. And George comes over and they make him like macrobiotic rice. And him and John are sitting around. It looks like they're talking about how much they hate Paul. And then they go in and they record How Do You Sleep?
Right, yeah, yeah.
And that has a line on it about, you want to tie that one in for us?
So Sergeant Pepper took you by surprise. Those freaks was right when they said you was dead. That's the line.
See, that's from the Yoko card line. The Paul cards. Those freaks were right when they said you were dead. Open it and it pops up and sticks you in the eye.
Yeah,
but
that was the big one there. But I wanted to, if you don't mind, before we get into the solo stuff, which there's a little bit, but get back to Pepper. At the very end of Pepper, in the out groove, at the out bit, where they're doing all this, they're saying something and you don't know what the hell they're saying. You know what I'm talking about?
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Did you ever play that backwards?
I play everything backwards, not even records.
Okay. And when you play that bit backwards, what do you get?
Wouldn't have it any other way. But what does it say, Warren? Do you have it handy?
And no, I don't.
Well, let me tell you what it says. It says, the super boogeyman is dead. That's what it says. The super boogeyman is dead. Yeah. So they were having so much fun and playing games with us. Yeah.
Never heard that either. Yeah. There's also something on the song Real Love.
Oh, really?
Yeah, would you like to hear that?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Yeah, what's that one about?
This is all coming from the sound bites that I got off of YouTube. So if it's incorrect, it's not my fault.
Okay. That's a disclaimer. Right. Very good. Yeah.
This is
You're learning from me.
This is Real Love going forward, and then it'll come in backwards. And here it is backwards. Now that is saying, Paul, we used to sing, we used to sing.
Does it really say that?
It says, Paul, we used to sing with you, we used to sing.
Do you think that's what it's saying backwards? Can you hear that word?
Yes, it's pretty close. If you listen to it, it's pretty close. So I'll play it one more time for you backwards. Did you hear that?
I heard with you.
It's hard, first of all, we're on the bloody telephones. And so, I mean, bless your heart, Warren, for doing it, but it's really difficult to hear it, so I can't really make it out. But the question is this: is that Paul, George, and Ringo got together, as we know, to take the tape that John had left, and wrote for Paul on the cassette tape, which Paul finally got from Yoko, and then he went to Jeff Lynne, and they started working on Real Love, and also Free as a Bird, those two songs. Now, they want to do a song with John, who we know really is dead. There's no such thing. Unfortunately, I wish there was such a thing as the John Lennon death hoax, and he was still alive today. But we know that, John really died. So why in the hell would they be doing this and having some kind of fun with this, saying that Paul is also dead, when they're doing a recording with John's voice when John has been dead for 15 years? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree with you there. Yeah, I don't know who compiled all these backwards sound bites, but it was pretty interesting when I seen it, and I figured I would bring them up to you and see if they were real or not.
Well, here's an idea, Mr. Wilson. Why don't we bring this guy on the show next time and have him on as a guest, and we can talk to him about all these things and see what he has to say. How about that?
Which one, McCartney? Ivor Davis might be able to get him.
No, the guy who Warren said made the backward stuff.
Yeah,
sure. I'm all up on it. I mean, I was kidding about McCartney. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't come on.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, well, what's this guy's name, Warren? Do you know?
He goes by
Agner Ratz.
It could be a girl or a guy. I have no clue, but it says Rona 12341. That is who made this video anyway.
Oh, this is a YouTube name, right?
I suppose.
I don't think it's the baptismal name.
Yeah.
Rona 4321.
Yeah, well, maybe her parents were really big into numbers. You know, who knows? Could be.
Rona starts with a W. WRONA 12341.
Oh, yeah. Well, we should get her or him on the show. I'd love to chat with them.
Yeah, I don't know how they
They'd probably be better than us. But the one on Free as a Bird was kind of innocuous, right? It was just saying we used to sing with him like they did it as a joke. Real Love or Free as a Bird? Which one did you play? I'm losing it. The one you just played. When
he said, no.
That was Real Love.
Real Love.
Real Love.
Yeah.
But when they played it backwards, it just said we used to sing with him. You're saying. Because when you played it me before when I was cooking my pork chops and before the show, and you were telling me about it. It sounded like it. It did. Like it was harder to hear this time, but it did sound like that's what it said. And I wondered if they put it on as a goof. Like it's they put it on.
But Warren, didn't you say it was Paul? Didn't the name Paul say we used to sing with Paul or something, or no?
It says
I think
Paul. Paul, we used to sing with you.
There you go. There you go.
Well, I mangled that one.
Yeah, not sing with John.
I say host, don't let Wilson on it. Yes, I understand. When they do this stuff, it is. When they do this stuff, though, like Brooke, when they're in a recording studio and they do this stuff, does it affect what's going forward backwards, if that makes sense? That sounded awful. That was like your Eric Burden Eggman quote. Sounds like we should be censored. But when they put the quote on the thing and you listen to it by spinning it in reverse, when it's going forward, is it just ambient noise? Or is it what they're actually saying that's coming in backwards?
Well, let me give you an example. If that makes sense. Let me give you an example.
Doesn't it ruin the recording when they put it in?
No. I'll give you an example. I'll use at the end of I'm So Tired. So at the end of I'm So Tired, if in fact I'm correct that John really says, Paul's a dead man, miss him. What he did was, the song ended, and then he went then on the microphone, he said, Paul's a dead man, miss him. And then he said to the engineers, okay, lads, now, so play it backwards, put it on the end of the song, and put that little bit on at the end backwards. So he's telling the engineers to take what he's saying forward, and they just simply reversed it and put this little tag on at the end of I'm So Tired. He did it forward, is what I'm saying. He did it forward. Right. And then he told the engineers to reverse it, and they just added it as a bit at the end of the song. That's all.
Is that what they call backward masking?
Yeah, you call it backward masking. You call it backward recording techniques. I mean, they were doing backward recording techniques, as early as Rain. At the end of Rain, John's vocals are backwards, which I'm sure you probably have noticed. George's guitar on I'm Only Sleeping, the guitar is backwards. So they got into this whole backwards thing back in '66. So that's what was going on. So they continued doing that, and John loved the whole backwards thing, especially.
Right.
I mean, listen to the, the bit at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever. The song fades out, and then it comes back in. And how does it come back in? That's backwards. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
That's all backwards. So you can hear the cymbals going backward and everything else. So John especially loved the whole backward recording technique.
When he does it in Rain, it sounds to me like he's saying, "Spare a dime and hurry through to me, Rain." I don't know what he actually says. It's my interpretation.
Well, but see what you just said is what you're listening to him. It's backwards. The forward part is I believe is actually from the beginning of when the rain comes, when the rain comes, I believe it's the beginning of the melody of one of the verses, just backwards. That's all. I believe it is.
Okay, I have one more question, and then Bob can take over from there on. When they crossed Abbey Road, and they had the pictures taken, they were all wearing what they are pictured wearing for reasons, according to the gossipers out there. Can you explain what that was?
Yeah. The interpretation is that John is the high priestess. Ringo is the undertaker. Paul is the corpse, and George is the graveyard digger, because George is the only one, which is interesting. They're all wearing suits. They're all dressed quite nicely, except for George. So it's kind of like, hey, George, you didn't get the memo. We're supposed to wear suits when we go across the zebra. So he shows up in his, extremely casual. And then, of course, the big thing is that, Paul's not wearing any shoes when he walks across the pavement. And then when people ask Paul that, his answer is, oh, well, it was a really hot day, so I took my sandals off. Well, for God's sake, if it's a hot day, you got to keep your sandals on because you're going to burn the bottom of your feet. So you wouldn't take them off, would you? Come on.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for me. Hey, Bulldog, you take over.
Well, it reminds me like the other story, the other guy who went to Africa and that we never saw again.
Yeah.
Remember when we were in Africa? What do you think of that one?
In Africa. Yeah, remember when we were in Africa. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of that other fella in that band, Los Puertas?
Well, I remember, when, of course, Mal and Paul went to Africa. Remember when we were in Africa? I mean, that's what, I think of. Now, I have never been to Africa, but I should tell you that I presently have a house guest who lives in Africa, and he might be able to shed some light on, when we went to Africa. But, I don't think that he went to Africa with Paul and Mal. Hey, excuse me, Maestro. I have a professor here from Africa. And did you ever go to Africa with Mr. McCartney and Mal Evans? Did you? Yeah, well, that's the end of that. He never went, so, okay.
That went out the window.
Well,
what about Jim Morrison? What about Jim Morrison, The Doors?
Yeah, well, Jim, of course, I don't know if Jim went to Africa or not, because I never wrote a book about the Doors. I don't know. I mean, I love the Doors, but I don't know if Jim opened up that African door. I don't know if he did or if he didn't. Did he, Mr. Wilson? Do you know if he went to Africa?
I was friends with someone who's related to them, and they said, how come you never asked me that question? And I said, gently, because I think he passed away. And they said, pretty much that's why, that's the case. So I think that's what happened to that guy. But the myth that came around it was pretty interesting, that he escaped and lived and, still might be with us, and everybody thought he might show up at a show someday.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, there's the doorman, there's the doors, there's the doorman, and then there's the Dorchesters. There's a whole group of door people that we could talk about. But I don't think the Doors went to Africa, quite frankly. I don't think so.
I concur, but all these guys made so much incredible music in a short period of time. It really strikes me. Seriously, like you take the the Beatles, like they played before that, but 64 or 63 to 70. The Doors in like a 5-year window, put out all those records. It's like there was such powerful music coming out. Even like I know people make fun of the Monkees sometimes, but the songwriters behind them were no joke in a lot of the songs, and the vocals from the singers were no joke. Davy Jones was a theater singer, and Mickey Dolenz and the other fellows have made their bones in other ways. Just the bands that were playing then, it's so different than now. It's like you could follow their art, and there was a theme in it, and they were questioning things, and there was just something so much behind it. And as we goof around with this stuff, it's just incredible that we're still talking about these bands, and today there's such a void.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I all kidding aside, I have to agree with that. But since you did bring up the Monkees, I mean, I would have to say that they were the ones who were from Africa, and I don't know if many people know that.
That's true.
Yeah.
They came over and they were in the traveling circus. Did you bring your other book with you today?
My other book?
Did you bring the Quizmaster hat?
Well, I have a number of books on my desk. Let's see now. I have one here. This is an interesting one. I didn't write this one, but it's like, Are You Lonesome Tonight? And for any of you folks that are lonesome tonight, I would highly recommend that you tune in to this wonderful show called Tomorrow Never Knows with my mates here, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Brown, if you're lonesome tonight. But then I have another book, another one, and gee whiz, it's called Do You Really Know the Beatles? A quiz book.
Yay!
Oh my God, how about that? Yeah.
Yay!
I'd like to keep that on my desk, because you never know when someone might call me up and say, Hey, what's going on with your book, Brooke? Brooke?
Hey, what's going on with your book, Brooke?
Well, what's going on is actually there's a chapter in my book, chapter 14, and in terms of the whole, backward stuff, that if you do, if you take the number 14 and you go backwards, it's 41. Just for those of you who really love the backward stuff. And what does that mean? What does that mean, 41? It means that it's 41 and nothing more. Whoa! Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, so chapter 14 is called the Paul McCartney Death Hoax. So we have a number of questions here in the book.
I'll come and take a listen.
Very nice. Thank you so much. It's great to be back on the show. We want to thank our musical director, Mr. Warren Brown, for that lovely bit of music and his orchestra. So here we are. Let's go on with another quiz question. And here's the question for everybody. When you play the ending chorus to I Am the Walrus backwards, what does it say? Da 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 da. Okay. Yeah.
It says do not eat walrus meat, veggie.
Ooh, wow.
Or does it say
No,
Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man.
No. Your answer it actually has to do with the McCartney song because Paul and Linda were vegetarians, but you're getting into the solo years now. So let's stay with the I Am the Walrus. It says, "Ha ha, Paul is dead." Ooh.
That's also in the Yoko card line.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes, it's
when you open the Grapefruit album, the cards fall out.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Boy, they put this on a lot of songs and stuff. Next question, please.
Okay. So this is pretty simple. So
we'll take mind-bendingly, incredibly hard for 500, Brooke.
Okay, this is another. I Am the Walrus. Actually, a question in support of the Paul is dead death hoax. What does a voice say at the end of I Am the Walrus?
Turn me on, dead man.
Turn me on, dead man.
No, my darlings, no.
Boo.
No.
It sounded really creepy when Warren said that. Say it again, Warren.
Boo.
No, say turn me on, dead man. You said it really creepy. It put a chill through me. I'm going to have nightmares. Go ahead, say it again.
Turn me on, dead man.
That was really sick. They should make a movie based on that. All right.
Okay, so the answer to the question, for those of you that are, just dying to know what it is, no pun intended, is that, untimely death. Because if you may know, during the mixing session, John said, turn on the radio, and it just so happened that BBC was playing something from King Lear. And whatever it was that was going on, he just actually had the engineers bring that into the mix. And it just so happened that at that point, it was, untimely death.
Wow.
They really got ornate into this stuff.
You're getting deep, Brooke.
Well, it can be. It can be at least 6 feet deep anyway, is what I've been told.
They weren't playing games with this stuff. I mean, they were doing this like on all the tracks. Somebody was into this business.
Oh, yeah. They were having a blast. They were having a lot of fun with this. Here's another one, which is a... Go ahead. I'm sorry, Warren. Go ahead. Sorry.
John was just having fun with this whole thing, and it was all made up, or John.
Yeah, all of them. They were all in on it, and they all denied it. And, of course, what happened was the record sales went through the roof because everyone ran out to buy the albums to play them backwards. So at a minimum, it was a brilliant marketing plan, and it worked very handsomely. Sales, they rocketed. They rocketed, because this is '69. So it's like they went back to Sgt. Pepper and to listen to that album with all the clues, and they went back to the White Album if they didn't have the White Album already. That was a year after the White Album came out. So the White Album sales and the Sgt. Pepper sales, and we haven't even mentioned Magical Mystery Tour. Those 3 album sales skyrocketed. And what's the big clue on? What's the big clue on the picture, the photograph of the grand ballroom scene for Your Mother Should Know that supports the Paul McCartney is Dead hoax?
I would
black
say
carnation,
black rose or black carnation, one or two.
Yes.
A pink sport coat and a black carnation means your left-handed bass player is dead.
Well, listen, chappies. John and George and Ringo all have red carnations on their white tuxedo jackets, and Paul is sporting a black carnation. And when people asked Paul, "Hey, Paul, how come you're not wearing a red carnation?" And he said, "Oh, well, they ran out of red ones, so, I just had them give me a black one." Well, there's no such thing as a black carnation. You can't buy a black. You ever try to go into a flower shop and say, "Excuse me, can you give me a half dozen or a dozen of the black carnations?" You can't get
only
black
when
tie.
Warren says "Turn me on, dead man." Then I go by Black Carnation.
I mean, come on. So again, they're just playing around and having fun with us. That was a very obvious clue, I would say, on Magical Mystery Tour.
I concur.
One of the many, actually, on Magical Mystery Tour.
But they were pink sport coats, right? Pink.
No, they were not. They were those lovely white tuxedo jackets they were wearing, walking down, the grand stairwell. For Your Mother Should Know, that scene in the movie.
Shocking.
Wasn't there a picture of Paul McCartney in uniform, and on the desk there was a sticker or something? I was correct.
No, it wasn't. It didn't say I was correct.
Can't get anything.
It said I was you. I was you. It said I was you. Clearly, it says I was you. Yeah.
Till I was you. Ta ta ta.
Yeah, I mean it's blatant. I mean that's in your face, for God's sake.
Right.
I say these boys were shocking, playing these games on the youth and such. It's horrible. With all this Elvis hair and long music and loudness, they should stop.
Wasn't there also something on Magical Mystery Tour about Paul's shoes or something being covered in blood?
Oh yeah. Well,
what?
When they were doing the I Am the Walrus.
Sounds like a Columbo episode. Peter Falk came in and Paul was covered in blood. Remember that episode after the Shatner one? Those were good.
Right. I heard that was just a reflection.
Yeah, again, McCartney took his shoes off. I guess McCartney has hot feet. He was always taking his sandals off. He's taking his shoes off. Boy, he must have hot feet. So anyhow, he took his feet off. He took his feet off for this one. That's how hot his feet were. He got rid of his feet.
How hot were they?
Yeah, how hot was it? Yeah. Now,
they were so hot.
He took his shoes off and he put them near Ringo's bass drum. And yeah, it looks like they're kind of like, maybe a little reddish. But more importantly, or maybe more appropriately in terms of the hoax, when you look at Ringo's bass drum, it looks like it says 3 Beatles on it. Yeah. That's a big one.
So they got into this business. I mean, they were like enjoying the heck out of this.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like something John would do.
Yeah, they were all into it. They were having fun. It was a big laugh. Yeah, it was a big laugh.
Okay, how about Yellow Submarine? Is there anything on there?
Yellow Submarine. Yeah, there is a clue, and it's George who gives it. And it's George's song, and the name of the song is "It's All Too Much." At the end of the song, he says clearly, and this isn't backwards or anything. This is all forward. He says, "You're too much, John. We are dead." So he was talking about the Beatles breaking up, actually. So this doesn't really apply to the death hoax. But it does talk about the quote-unquote impending death of the Beatles. You can hear that.
And John already wanted the divorce?
No. But John, at that point, this is, let's see now, 68. He had met Yoko. And, George really didn't like Yoko. I think George disliked Yoko more than Paul, actually, in the beginning. And, yeah, I think so. Yeah, so, I mean, George couldn't stand her being in the recording studio. And Paul didn't like her being in there either. But anyhow, we digress. So let's go back to the Paul McCartney death hoax. Now, here's a good question. Why did they name the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Why the hell would you name an album Lonely? It should be Sgt. Pepper's Happy Hearts Club Band. Why do you want it to be a Lonely Hearts Club Band? Why were they lonely?
Because Paul was dead.
Yes, because John, George, and Ringo were lonely and they missed Paul. Yes, exactly.
Did they have a reason for covering it up, like in this thread, of stuff? Like, did they come up with a reason they're covering it up because? Was there like a big conspiratorial reason they were covering it up?
Covering what up?
Like, I mean, in the myth of this. Like,
why they wouldn't admit it?
Yeah, and then the Beatles were sort of giving you clues, but I heard some ridiculous, like MI6 did this because they were exploring so many records.
Yeah. Well, because it was a game. It was a game, and they were just having fun. That's all. That's all that they were doing. That's what I think.
Okay, so now that we saw this, so where's Paul McCartney buried? Now that we've established that he croaked, where's the real grave?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Now, some people think that he was buried in the same cemetery along with Eleanor Rigby. Eleanor Rigby was buried in that cemetery in Liverpool. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm. The little gravestone.
Yeah, the gravestone. So that's a good question, and no one has really given us the answer to that one. Where is his body? That's right. Now, here's another question, which my dear friend this evening brought up. And he said to me, he says, well, who is the reincarnation of Paul McCartney if he had died? Wow.
Webster, the little kid from the 70s cartoons. Yeah. Michael Jackson was always toting him around.
Isn't it? Isn't that an interesting question? The reincarnation of Paul McCartney. Wow. We'd have to do some research on that one.
Really?
Oh, Nelly.
Yeah, Whoa, Nelly is right.
So this ends up the way it always ends up. The Beatles sold more records.
Yes, exactly.
Basically.
It was a marketing strategy, and it worked. I'm telling you.
It's all
done. Yeah, absolutely.
I just find it amazing that none of them came forward. I don't know if one of them like Ringo was kidding around a couple of years ago, and he made a Paul is dead joke, and like people jumped on it.
Well, he did it on April Fool's Day. Yeah, he said, "Oh yeah, I've got to admit it. Yeah, the real Paul really died. It was on April Fool's Day." Yeah. Then he said, "No, I was only joking." Yeah. Right.
Tell us about, you had the quiz book with you. When people want to pick that little hot item up, where can they go to find everything Brooke?
The best place to go is Amazon. You just go to Amazon. Do you really know the Beatles? You put my name in, Brooke with an E, Halpin, H-A-L-P as in Paul, I-N, Halpin, Brooke Halpin. Do you really know the Beatles? Quiz book. And then
I thought I did till you started asking me these questions. Now I'm not so sure.
Will all your books come up on there if I did a search on Amazon with your name?
Well, if you go Brooke Halpin books, then they'll all come up, because I've got 3 Beatle books. Yeah. By the way, Mr. Wilson, I sent you my novel based on a true story, and I'm sure you've read it by now, right?
Why don't we have you back, and when you come back, we can discuss your novel based on a true story.
And the name of that book is
Magical Mystery Book.
A Magical Mystery Time. Yeah.
Well, you caught me unawares. You loaded me up with that one. But yes, all Brooks. That's why we have Brooke back so often, folks, because he's a master musician. He's a master writer. He's like in, all things Beatles, and that's why we always have him back on the show. But we have to do it.
That's very sweet of you, Bob. Appreciate that.
But also have to read it, so I don't want to give away the plot now.
Yeah,
before my co-host read it.
Well, I have to send it to Warren as well. Warren might want to read it. He might want to read it. Yeah.
Warren's collecting Beatle books at like a breakneck clip since we've been doing these shows. He bought like a new bookcase.
Yeah, the
mailman is cursing him each day.
So you probably have like the Brooke Halpin library right now. I'm finishing my fourth book as we speak on the beat. I'm only joking. No.
Oh, yeah, Brooke, I would love to get your book.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll
And did Warren do some art for you? Because I know he's like a real kick-ass artist.
Yes, he did. Actually, he did 2 graphics for my show. Bless his heart. Thank you, Warren. The first one was great. The second one got rave reviews, and that's the one that I use periodically when I promote my show. Yeah.
I'm glad you like it.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Now, do you guys?
You give me your other book, and I'll get you another one.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll send you a PDF of the other one.
Your mailman just heaved a sigh of relief. You're getting an ebook. Is this your first ebook, Warren?
It would be my first. Yes, it would.
So now you're branching out into the electronic wing of the Warren Brown Beatles Memorial Library.
I appreciate it, Brooke.
Sure.
So will you come back and talk about the other book, Brooke?
I'd be happy to talk about the other book, Brooke. Yes, I would. The other Brooke book. Yes, I would. Absolutely.
Well, we would be happy too. You were every time I start a new show and a new line, you've always been the first guest, and you've been the one who's blessed us with your presence time after time. We thank you. Now, can you guys do? At the end of Yellow Submarine, they all went out singing. So we've been closing the shows with that same song. And in the end, so do you guys want to sing that? And maybe I'll try my hand at Her Majesty. We'll have like a neat little Beatles closeout.
Okay, sure.
Whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, Warren, you want to take it?
Let's go. And in the end, the love
you take is equal to the love you make.
Her Majesty's a pretty nice girl, but she doesn't have a lot to say. Her Majesty's a pretty nice girl, but she changes from day to day. I want to tell her that I love her a lot, but I gotta get a belly full of Brooks book. Her Majesty's a pretty nice girl, someday I'm gonna make her mine. Oh yeah, someday I'm gonna make her mine.
Bum, bum.